You paste a long document in and ask one question. The answer is in there, one paragraph sitting about halfway down. And in the experiment that named this problem, the machine did worse than if you had handed it nothing at all. That result is from 2023, on a model nobody uses now, with about 4,000 tokens of context. Today's windows are roughly 1,000 times bigger. So here is the question. Where inside a long prompt does information go to die? And does it still? Start with the experiment, because it is almost insultingly simple. One question, a stack of Wikipedia passages. Exactly one of them contains the answer, and the rest are decoys. Then, the researchers slide that one useful passage to different slots in the stack and score whether the answer turns up in the output. That is the entire design. Plot where the answer was hidden along the bottom and how often the model found it up the side, and you get the curve this paper is named for. And it is not a gentle dip. Accuracy falls off a cliff inside the first few documents, flat lines through the middle, and only partly recovers at the end. Here is the number they printed. Given no documents at all, GPT 3.5 scored 56.1%. In the worst case, with 20 or 30 documents in front of it, it scored lower than that. The answer was in the pile. Having the pile made it worse. The person who ran that experiment was a graduate student. Nelson Liu, a Stanford PhD student, spending the summer interning at a startup called Samaya AI. The preprint went up on the 6th of July, 2023. About 15 days later, LangChain, the plumbing underneath an enormous number of AI products, shipped a piece of code whose actual name is Litum Reordering, lost in the middle reordering. Its description says to put the less relevant documents in the middle and the more relevant ones at the beginning and the end, and it links the paper. 2 weeks from a preprint to shipped infrastructure. It had not even been peer-reviewed yet. So why the middle? The honest answer is the architecture, and the proof is inside the same paper. These models read strictly forward. Every word can only look back at what came before it, and that pulls influence toward the earliest tokens. The way position gets encoded pulls attention the other way, toward the most recent ones. The middle is the one region neither force favors. Now the control. Run the same test on an encoder-decoder model, which takes the whole input in at once, and within the length it was trained on, the curve goes almost flat, under 2% between its best position and its worst. And the popular explanation is wrong. It is not that chatbots are trained to obey the instruction at the top. They tested a base model with no such training. Same shape. And now the part that almost everybody gets backwards, including people quoting this paper. You have heard the advice. Put your question at the end. It is reasonable advice. It is not this paper's finding. In these experiments, the question was already at the end, every single time, and the curve showed up anyway. What the paper actually recommends points the other way. Get the relevant material closer to the start. And look at the shape again. It is not a hammock. The two ends are not level. The beginning beats the end by a clear margin. So if you are going to move the thing you care about to an edge, the evidence says pick the front. Now the caveat, because it is bigger than it looks. That experiment is 3 years old. The model is retired, and the whole context was about 4,000 tokens. The frontier now sits around 1 million. Nobody has published the same position-by-position test on a current model. So what actually survived? Not the number, the advice. Anthropic and Google both still tell developers, in documentation live this year, to put the long material first and the question last. And they would not keep publishing that if position had stopped mattering. But there is a bigger problem underneath it now, and it is not position at all. It is length. One 2025 study put the evidence immediately before the question, with retrieval working perfectly, and performance still fell, from length alone. So the rule is not move it out of the middle. It is move it to an edge and make the prompt shorter. So go back to the beginning. You pasted the whole thing in because it was easier than deciding which part mattered. That is the trade. The machine will accept all of it, and it will read the front and the back more carefully than the part you buried in the middle. Choosing what matters is still your job. It is the part nobody automated. Put it at the front. Keep it short. And stop assuming that everything it can hold is everything it can use.